Hey everyone, it's your buddy back again with another exciting fanfic, which is what if Naruto had a twin and became the red demon of the hidden mist. Part 3. If you enjoy this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more fanfics like this. Now, let's dive right into the fanfic. The Ghost Flash were heavy deterrents. Doesn't make it any better. Naruto sighed, rolling his head on his neck. He put on his best face and eased his temper back. What can I do for you, Lord Shibi? I have found a prime candidate for my clan's praying mantis nest. The twins found their eyebrows up and their eyes doubtful. The clan head reached into the darkness of his coat and took out a file. Attached to the front with a paperclip was a colored passport of a crying child. Not the best or most convincing picture. The emotionally neutral insect holder admitted, showing some small measure of weariness in his shrug. But it's the best we were able to get. Naruto collected the file and opened it with both hands, moving it between himself and his sister. His name is Aku. 4 years old. Orphan. We begin implanting the nest next week. Says here his parents died from prolonged Kyuubi chakra radiation. Naruto voiced and Rin's brow creased. That form of radiation was internationally known to be a fate worse than death. Reading on, she realized why the village authorities and the Aburame clan council didn't mercy kill Aku's parents to put them out of their misery. Says here, they didn't show signs of radiation until Aku was 1. Rin mumbled, her frown falling deeper and deeper, reading the report. They were quarantined for some days after the Kyuubi attack, released, then quarantined again 3 years ago when Aku was born as soon as they started deteriorating. The mother went first, and the father followed. A deep scrub of the clan compound and there is no discovered trace of radiation. Our scientists think that the healer beetles the parents hosted miraculously subdued the radiation. These healing properties were passed to Aku, making his chakra and his body resilient to Kyuubi's radiation. Amazing, Naruto whispered, baffled the more he read. How has the nest reacted to his blood and chakra? Favorably, was the man's short answer. Snapping the file shut and handing it back to the man, Naruto said. That's all good and fine, Lord Shibi, but why are you telling me this? Seems you forgot my request from last month. Busy as you are, I can't blame you, the man said, tucking the file back into his coat. I would appreciate it very much if you trained Aku. Personally. Recalling his request, Naruto repeated his follow-up question. What can I possibly teach him that your clan isn't well equipped to show him? It is well known in my clan the calamitous depths of your praying mantis summons, Naruto. Although a small reflection, the mantis queen you lent our clan has displayed potential to replicate your summons, albeit to a far lesser degree. Gold leaf praying mantis, Naruto's summons, were an apocalyptic species of mantis. Chaotic, frenzied, bloodthirsty, highly matriarchal. When unleashed, they brought about the end of lives, livelihoods, and ecosystems. One thing people understandably forgot about gold leaf praying mantis was that when they found a worthwhile summoner, they were deathly loyal and infinitely obedient. They provided Naruto secrets and their allegiance, and Naruto provided them 2 things. His chakra and his blood. It was, for lack of better words, a fair trade. The mantis queen and her nest in the Aburame clan showed signs of this scrutiny, though the loyalty was yet to be seen since no previous person to have signed that contract lived to tell the tale. It was possible that the mantis nest were calm enough to be frequently used, more so than the broiling mass twisting inside Naruto's summoning contract. As we speak, my clan's best seal masters are writing a summoning realm that can and should hold the queen mantis nest. The queen herself would reside in the boy's heart. A gruesome truth was that being seated in the heart, the queen would have easy access to both blood and chakra, laying her eggs and nurturing her soldiers from that ticking throne, all the while refraining from taking too much from the host. Since the gold leaf are an extension of yourself, and the queen is an extension of the gold leaf, then Aku would soon be an extension of yourself. Independent and free-thinking, yes, but an extension nonetheless. You said so yourself. Naruto mulled this in his mind. Who better to teach the child restraint? Naruto hummed. We're willing to pay. The redhead scoffed. Don't do that, Lord Shibi. He looked to his twin and the two held a wordless conversation with their eyes. Purple meeting blue, flickering back and forth messages. In exchange for teaching the kid, I want you to owe me a favor. What favor? The clan head prodded, standing more upright that the red demon was agreeing to his proposition. Rin answered. To be determined. Something might come up and we'll need your support. Nothing compromising to your clan or its privacy, Lord Shibi. We swear. Naruto vowed on their behalf, hinting that both he and Rin were going to teach Aku restraint. Even though she didn't have a summoning contract of her own, Rin played a big part in reminding her brother of his humanity. The proposal of having two ranks teaching a clan mate of his was too good to be resist. The twins caught the muted smile on the man's expression. Deal. Naruto and Shibi shook on it. Drop by when you can to see the boy. The Aburame clan head said as he released Naruto's hand. It'll be good if he familiarizes himself with your faces. Both of you. Definitely. The two spoke together, too used to occasionally speaking simultaneously to catch the seamless synchronism. It was vaguely haunting when they kept doing so, saying, expect us tomorrow. Tomorrow evening, if nothing comes up. Of course. He nodded to the twins. Rin. Naruto. He went off to their right, no doubt back to the clan compound to check up on the person he hoped would bring widespread recognition and appreciation for the Aburame clan. The twins stood for a moment, deciding where to look for their sister. They decided to check home first. Naruto and Rin vibrated, the former wafting a thin mist of red from his form and the other expelling muted yellow lights from her skin. Elbow in elbow, they made to step forward and vanish in a blur of their specialty speeds when. Sir. Rin groaned and Naruto chuckled, poking her side. The two turned to their left and saw Sasuke running up to them, his parents staying put where they were some yards away. His white pants and blue shirt were dirty from the fight, and his right knuckles were taped, a sign that Makoto's Rasengan didn't leave him unaffected. His parents watched on as their son skidded to a stop before the twins, doing his best not to pant and standing with a rigid back. Naruto gave the boy a friendly smile, driving an elbow into his sister's side when she sent the boy a sneering smile. Sasuke, he said, looking over the boy with his Sharingan to see that any injury was being managed, deactivating his Dujutsu. Congrats on winning the Chunin exams. You made me proud, kid. To show the sincerity of his words, and that there weren't any hard feelings for the boy beating up his baby sister, Naruto held out his left fist to the boy. No one knows exactly when using the left hand to shake or fist bump became so revered. Reserved for family and anyone deemed highly respectable, whether in the ninja or civilian world. Anything done with the right hand was considered formality, business partners shaking hands, teammates exchanging fist bumps after a good training session, and begrudging enemies agreeing to lay down their arms for the sake of peace. Greeting with the left hand was different. It signified a higher form of respect. Less so adoration and more than appreciation. It was an honored gesture. Getting offered a fist bump by one's hero was a life-altering moment. Sasuke's expression showed it all. His eyes bugged wide enough for his Sharingan to flicker on and off, his shoulders slumped with weakness, his arms dangled absent-mindedly, his knees bent with what looked like the weight of the world, and his entire focus was on that one offered appendage. Then the boy inhaled, and that weight evaporated off his back. He took that fist bump with pride, meeting Naruto's fist with his left with a shaking tap. Something resembling a smile came onto Fugaku and Makoto Uchiha's faces, the wife's more visible than her husband, feeling the man slide his arm over her shoulders and pull her close, sharing that moment with their son. Although it had taken them a while to understand why their youngest son adored the male Namikaze twin, they only had to accept it when they saw how the boy trained. Not even Itachi received the same recognition, much to the older boy's chagrin. Beating Makoto Namikaze for the very first time meant a lot more to Sasuke than anyone could ever know. Thank you, sir. Sasuke nodded, making himself look taller than he actually was. That means a lot, sir. Sir. The twin parroted again in their heads. When did that start? You'll be heading for the tower soon to collect your Chunin vest, right? Rin questioned, adjusting her stance to not seem so threatening, but that didn't help much with how hard she was glaring at the boy. Naruto had to dig his elbow into her side, coughing a glare at her and receiving a defiant raspberry in return. Yes, sir. Lord Hokage asked me to come to his office tomorrow. That's great, kid. I'll be there to cheer for you. Promise. The boy's pale face lit up and Naruto laughed, tousling his hair. Well, sir. Enough with the, sir, kid. It felt more than weird to be referred like that by his best friend's younger brother. You want help with something? Yes, Naruto, sir. Sasuke stood upright, pulling his shoulders back and tipping his chin up. He spoke confidently, like he practiced with his mirror. I would like to be your student. The twins' brows raced up. Naruto then quickly gained composure and glared his sister into silence when she was about to laugh, basking in the hilarity of being proposed that question 2 times in the same day and also that Sasuke thought her brother would agree. Get your eyes to 3 Tomo, and we'll talk. She couldn't help but blurt. What? Naruto, you can't be serious. Really? Sasuke squawked. That's it. Naruto smirked. No promises. Maybe a few pointers here and there, nothing formal. Elevating from 2 Tomo to 3 was no easy or quick feat. It required obsessive dedication to improve and an unmatched drive to succeed. Besides, he was apparently now going to teach a 4-year-old Aburame child how not to go insane with power. He had his hands full. Naruto suggested, motioning to his sister. Rin is just as strong as me. And her schedule's wide open. Hell no. He almost killed Makoto. Goddamn destroyed her arm. She gestured incredulously at the now grim Uchiha boy, mentally retreating into himself. The glow on his parents' expressions dulled. What's there to think about? It was a fight, Rin. A regulated fight. Naruto had to remind her. I nearly killed you in our own Chunin exam fight. Did you hate me? The teen stuttered, lost for words for a good 5 seconds. That's not the same thing, Naruto. Sasuke won fair and square. That's the end of that, he said, putting an end to her complaining. Facing the boy, he sent him a quick smirk. Remember what I said. He waved to Sasuke's parents, who momentarily were distracted, staring expressionless daggers at Rin, till they nodded. Are we still having dinner at your place, Uncle Fugaku, Auntie Miko? The Uchiha clan head didn't reply. Makoto tried at a smile, the result looking lopsided and jagged. Why not? We can play charades after dinner. Come, Sasuke. Fugaku ordered, eyes fixed on Rin, even as the girl gulped and pointedly kept her eyes down. Home. Now. Sasuke wilted, paling at the man's tone. Yes, father. The two watched the Uchihas walk off, Sasuke's parents taking point at the boy warily slinking behind them. Naruto leaned to Rin, speaking from the corner of his mouth. If Auntie Miko poisons us, it's your fault. Screw you, Lord Red Demon. Rin swore, finding her defiance after being glared at by her Uchiha uncle. She said dramatically, while you're teaching that kid, why don't you visit Suna again for Lord Red Demon Day, Season 2? I bet that cult fan club of yours is waiting for you. Cult is a strong word. Naruto winced. Part of the month intermission after the first round of the Chunin exam was traveling to Suna Incognito. The twins confirmed that there was an underground society of women in Suna that had encountered Naruto's stamina on some form of surface. It wasn't only made up of Suna indigenes but people that had caught wind of the whisperings and were interested in the second coming. It was a mystery how such a large and established society of people could remain hidden so completely. They had a treasury, a secret handshake, ID cards written with invisible ink, and, worse of all, their own scripture describing the first coming. It was graphic, all 7 days, and all 3 rounds Naruto went around each lady that presented herself. The art was honestly impressive. The Suna-worshipped Lord Red Demon cringed. And when will you let that go? I already apologized. Not enough, asshole. Despite her anger, she didn't unhook Naruto's elbow from hers. I want you to go back to Suna and disband that fucking cult. Pun not intended. If that's what it'll take to get you to forget about this, fine. Eyeing her brother, Rin scowled. Damn horn dog. Do you honestly think I won't go with you? None of those skanks are laying a fingernail on you, idiot. Fine. Naruto exclaimed, reducing his voice when they started getting looks. He pulled her to walk away from the hospital. No problem, okay. And we're having dinner tomorrow. And a movie. And you're giving me a foot massage. Alright. Fine. Whatever you want. What if someone got pregnant? Huh. Rin continued ranting and Naruto groaned, deeper and longer, running a hand down his face. He nervously shrugged to an old couple passing by them. What if the condom broke and you didn't notice and now someone's pregnant? Catching herself when she remembered that, Lord Red Demon Day, was now 9 months ago, she became paler than pale. What if you're already a father? Naruto. Then what are you going to do, Naruto? You're too young to be a dad, Naruto. You don't have the money to be paying child support, Naruto. You can't be asking dad to help you pay child support, Naruto. Kami knows I'm not giving you fucking shit for child support. Kami, Rin, I didn't get on your case this much when you banged that samurai guy. Because you killed him, she hissed, baring her fangs and spitting venom. Naruto grimaced, recalling. Had him kill himself and hung him by his fucking balls. Literally. The image of a disemboweled man with a noose around his balls came to mind, creaking silently on pre-prepared gallows. His throat was slit open and his face was eternally twisted in grievous pain. The cover-up prevented an international situation. You learned carpentry just to hang that poor jackass. Naruto hiked his shoulders defensively. I mean, you can do better. Don't you dare. Rin steamed, stomping hard and dragging her brother. Don't you fucking dare. Naruto mumbled something incomprehensible and Rin dared him to say it out loud. That's what I thought. Tired of being chewed out, Naruto picked up his sister and threw her over his shoulder, vanishing in a burst of red smoke. When anyone next saw them, Naruto wore an infuriatingly plain expression and Rin could hardly walk. They found Makoto in the academy's playground. She was seated on the lonesome swing, still in the white shirt, black shorts clothes she wore in the hospital and with her casted right arm secured in a sling. At the foot of the tree and sitting with her back against the tree trunk, Hinata had her legs pulled to her chest and her chin resting on her knees. The Hyuga's Byakugan eyes were on Makoto's, and the Namikaze's blue gaze looked into space, speaking to the quietly listening girl as she slightly swung back and forth. It's like having a second mind, she said, and Hinata nodded quietly, brow knitted. Like a cheat code in my brain. Like a sixth sense. Or better yet, a seventh. Hinata shifted, putting her feet down and asking. Seventh? It's hard to explain. Makoto strained a laugh, stopping her swung to scratch the back of her head. The princess smiled, a small, honest expression. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. We can talk about something else. Makoto contemplated, shaking her head after. Nah. She brought her eyes down to her new friends, nervously looking down to the ground and pouting. I feel like, I can, finally talk to someone about this. She laughed a little, resuming her swing and looking elsewhere. Even if you're probably not going through the same thing. Naruto and Rin pursed their lips. They didn't expect their sister to tell them everything going on in her life, and they tried not to crowd her all the time. Adding to the strangeness of that day, they hadn't ever seen Makoto acting this somber. They also didn't know she had any friends. It felt like this was a conversation they shouldn't be listening to, yet they did. I call it Kurama, Makoto continued, stopping her swing and her face twisted with confusion. Or maybe it said I should call it Kurama, I'm not sure. She then added. Thing is, I didn't ask for its name, I just knew it, so I called it that. Kurama. She giggled, knowing what all of this must sound like. I swear, I'm not crazy. I know you're not. Hinata said, not missing a beat. Her eyes were wide with sincerity and openness, and Makoto flushed. The Hyuga blushed too, saying, I might also have something like that, I in my head. She guardedly pulled her knees up to her chest, her red face whitening steadily and her expression falling to something vaguely resembling tiredness. She stammered, but Makoto waited. Ever patient, ever smiling, nodding for her new friend to go on. It tells me, to H who hurt people. K kill people. Burn everything. She looked to the Namikaze girl, eyes glazed with unwept tears and pleading. I don't want to hurt anyone, Makoto. Hinata didn't know what to expect from revealing her biggest secret. Disgust? Maybe. Fear? Definitely. What's it telling you now? Makoto asked. Hinata closed her eyes, her smile mournful. That you're using me. Somehow. That we're not actually friends. The red-haired girl frowned. That you need to die. Makoto didn't move for some time, face grim and thinking. Until Naruto and Rin saw her stand from the swing and approach Hinata. Their sister eased herself down next to the noiselessly weeping girl, whose eyes were still closed. The twins recalled the night Hinata was kidnapped by the Kumo delegation. Seeing her uncle Hazashi slaughter her kidnappers to the last person did terrible things for Hinata's mental state of well-being. She became quieter, more withdrawn, more observant, more guarded. The twins didn't need to confirm from Hinata's academy entrance psych evaluation to know that the little Hyuga girl was a very troubled child. Looking at how haunted Hinata was about her diabolic thoughts, Naruto and Rin wondered why she wasn't getting some sort of treatment. Hell, Naruto had watched his mother getting murdered by the very monster inside his baby sister, and seeing his father physically break down as a result, had activated his Sharingan, warping his perception of mortality and destroyed his sympathy for other living creatures. His utter devotion to his family was matched only by his sisters and his father. Hinata was a troubled girl, yes, but the shadow whispering in her ear so far hadn't been able to push her into the abyss. Seeing how she looked at Makoto, Naruto understood why she didn't succumb. After a long silence, Makoto bumped her shoulder against her new friend's. You're stuck with me, Hinata. I'm not going anywhere. Naruto and Rin stood back, proud of their baby sister's careful words. They left the two girls alone, deciding to properly apologize to Makoto later. Konoha's Torture and Interrogation Department. Detention Center for the Criminally Insane. Somewhere in the Forest of Death. Minato almost pitied Orochimaru. Almost. I would have thought you'd have me tortured, Blondie. Orochimaru mocked, strapped to a table slanted upright, able to level a laughing sneer at the Hokage as he strolled into his cell. He chortled when the prison doors were closed behind the oldest Namikaze. So, you are human after all. The prison room was a hole in the wall hewn from a dark gray bedrock. 10 feet deep, 5 feet wide and 10 feet high, it was an isolated and claustrophobic coffin lit by a distant fluorescent light, flickering with age and disregard. The particular wing Minato had ordered Orochimaru to be sent to was one so deep underground and isolated from the living, waking world, it might as well be a suffocating space in solitary hell. The hundreds of other cells left, right and around Orochimaru was hollow and empty. The snake Sanin could just barely make out Minato's outline, hovering at the door and traced by the sliver of light creeping in from afar. His clear blue eyes were as bright as the morning sun, almost like it glowed in the dark. Coupled with his shadowy form and the two blue eyes shining at him, Orochimaru wouldn't be mistaken if Minato Namikaze was the Shinigami itself. And that wasn't very far from the truth. Or are you here to kill me yourself? Minato hummed, his arms at his sides. His vision made out the straitjacket the Sanin had been tied in and that he had been shaved bald, losing his eyebrows and fangs also for good measure. The restraint seals crippling the sage would have been cruel on any other person. Aside from the straitjacket and the table Orochimaru was attached to, There wasn't much use in physically keeping him restrained. Naruto's last attack had severely shifted 3 bones along his spine, which cut a vital nerve at the base of Orochimaru's neck and above his pelvis. Minato had been so merciful as to order for the former rogue shinobi to be washed and clothed, but not so much as to have him get painkillers. But apparently, that wasn't needed. Orochimaru didn't feel any pain. He didn't feel anything. To think this was Konoha's most feared missing ninja. The man that had stolen children, created abominations, threatened the Hokage's family, and selfishly raised a network of villages for the purpose of destroying his home village. There's no point wasting Konoha's resources by torturing a madman. Orochimaru cooed. You flatter me, boy. For your crimes against humanity, against common decency, and against your home, I condemn you to spend the rest of your miserable days here. No snakes. No sage chakra. Alone in the dark. Till you wither and die. Is that so much as a punishment or a chance to recuperate? Delude yourself however you want. Minato shrugged, crossing his arms and glaring. Those 4 children you sent to fight for you to Yuya called themselves the Sound Four are undergoing rehabilitation and agreed, on their own free will, to lead us to the hidden sound villages they know. It had taken some effort on his own part, but Minato had been able to do the mind-altering fuinjutsu Orochimaru had used on them, and Inoichi and his most trusted clan mates helped the Sound Four discern lies from reality. Chemical hypnosis made up a large part of any loyalty to the snake Sanin. There was remarkably no foul play involved. I'll admit you didn't make it easy for us. Minato nodded to himself. We'll finally be able to save all those children you took from this country. Orochimaru scoffed. How? Konoha? Of you, boy. Holier than thou like your predecessors, when in fact you all have done far worse. I didn't come here to debate who's worse or who's better. I came to say that I'm personally dismantling your machine, Orochimaru. As we speak, my ninjas are on their way to Grass Country. To Orochimaru's credit, his twisted sneer didn't change. I will find your allies, your enablers, and I will wipe them out. Believe me when I say this, dig too deep and the horde of monsters you find will eat you alive. Luckily for us, we have monsters of our own. Minato said. He wasn't talking about himself. He was talking about the S-rank team, Ghost Flash. He was talking about the A-rank ninjas under his command, Kakashi Hatake, Asuma Sarutobi, Might Guy, Yugao Azuki, Anko Mitarashi, and others. He dared the monsters Orochimaru spoke to brazenly about to do their worst. And in time, they will. You will never see the light of day, Orochimaru. Don't make promises you can't keep, Minato. Minato spoke over his shoulder. We're done here. The cell door snapped open and the ninja beside it bowed to the Hokage, while the man left. The door shut with a slam, a giggling Orochimaru imprisoned inside, and all of the Yondaime's guards exited the ghostly silent underground floor. The solitary light was switched off and Orochimaru was by himself. Alone. Wave Country. Haku knelt at a gravesite, feeling his thumb over the neat words etched on the slanted rock. Zabuza Momochi. Father. Mentor. Savior of Wave Country. Jammed into the earth behind the headstone was the fabled Kubikiribocho, Zabuza's larger-than-life executioner's blade. None of Zabuza's former comrades in the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist had come to claim the head cleaver, and Haku was glad for that. He could never have the strength to wield the blade. He and Team Kakashi hadn't been able to recover Zabuza's body from the sea. They searched for a full week and all they found was the Kiri missing ninja's forehead protector, which Haku no wore over his brow. The slash on the Hittite showed prominently. It was a small comfort. The people of Wave also unanimously agreed to name the new bridge connecting Fire Country and Wave, the Zabuza Momochi Memorial Bridge, honoring the penitent man that gave the end of his life to protecting Wave. The massive structure soon became a vital nerve for Wave-Konoha relations, boosting the island's withering economy and improving lives. To think the demon of the hidden mist would die in such a way. Truly tragic. Haku didn't visibly show any surprise at his appearance, rising to his feet and subtly preparing to form icicles. The Mizukage thrummed, his greenish eyes dull and childishly young face turned down to Zabuza's grave. No need for wariness, child. I come in peace. Besides, if Yagura wanted Haku dead, he would have done that already. It was easy to mistake the man's petite stature for weakness, being just as tall as a 13-year-old Haku and looking just as young. It didn't relax Haku, not one bit. The emotionless holder of the three-tailed turtle gnashed his teeth. I said, stand down. The deep tremor of his voice darkened, and Haku forced himself to relax, bowing out of breath at the killer intent weighing on him. Yagura pulled his chakra back into himself and said, good. What do you want, Lord Yagura? Careful not to say something out of line. After all, this same man had sparked several bloodline genocides in his village and had been the sole reason the 7 swordsmen of the mist fled from Kiri. Haku's clan was erased because of this Mizukage. Yagura earned his moniker through decades of cruelty. Monster among monsters. Yagura held out his hands and swept them down his body, showing that he was unarmed. He then jabbed a thumb over his shoulder, directing Haku's eyes to his hook staff, hanging from a tree branch. I want us to talk. Naruto and Rin's apartment. Uchiha clan. Kami, big bro, you look terrible. Naruto grumbled, slumping into his seat at the dining table, narrowing a weak side eye to his half-smirking, half-concerned sister. Good morning to you too, Makoto. The girl shrugged, not knowing Rin was approaching her from behind. I'm just saying, you look worse than normal. Ow. Cut it out. Naruto had a long night. The older twin dropped her hand, finished slapping Makoto upside the head, feeling like the girl had gotten the message. She served her sister a plate of scrambled eggs and toast. Since butter and strawberry jam were more or less permanent fixtures of their dining table, all Makoto had to do was reach to the center of the table and grab the medium-sized jar of jam, grateful, yet pouting as she spread a layer on her toast with a knife with one hand. We both did. Rin continued. Biting down on jam on toast, Makoto turned to her sister and observed as she placed Naruto's breakfast before him, giving her brother's shoulder a comforting squeeze as he tiredly smiled up at her. Her long, curly sun-colored hair was pulled back and tied in a loose ponytail, falling to reach her upper back. The usual glow of her skin was somewhat dimmed, not so much as to resemble the paling gray of her brother's but considerable enough for Makoto to pause. The girl also noticed the grim circles around her normally jovial sister's eyes, less pronounced than the dark bags underneath Naruto's, but, again, it was significantly pronounced for Makoto to be concerned. The 3 siblings were ninjas, so waking up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at the crack of dawn was the norm. Makoto had moved out from the Hokage's residence and had been living with her older siblings in the Uchiha compound since she started going to academy at the age of 8, having been introduced to the benefits of waking up and starting the day productively. By 30 minutes after 6, they were normally all awake, had breakfast and left the house to commence their day. Daily schedules differed, but the common thing was that the twins would take some missions, either solo or as a team, and Makoto would join her teammates on Training Ground 11 for their morning routine. Now, Naruto and Rin looked abnormally exhausted. Their 3-bedroom apartment seemed too stuffy all of a sudden. The square dining table suddenly seemed too large. Rin took off her apron and sat down across from her brother, sighing into her toast. Makoto looked between her brother's apologetic look and Rin's returned shrug of nonchalance. It was jarring how awkward it was amongst the twins. Couldn't sleep? Makoto questioned whoever was willing to answer, speaking with her mouth full and breaking the brittle tension in the air. Yeah, it was Naruto's turn to sigh, exhaling as he sat back on his chair. He pointed to the right side of his stomach. The poison. I need to be awake to keep it out of my vital organs. He gestured to Rin. She helped when I got tired, some time before sunrise. That still didn't mean he could sleep. Getting targeted vibrations into his stomach region wasn't a sensation someone could sleep through. Naruto didn't miss the irony of his situation, since 1 month ago he had warned Sasuke about the dangers of sleep deprivation to a shinobi. Did you know that sleep deprivation is the #1 cause of death in a shinobi? He rubbed his face and groaned, making Rin stop eating and look at him with growing worry. Her twin gave her a look, and several messages were passed at once. They didn't think the Hokage would clear Naruto to receive missions if they saw how tired he was from just one sleepless night. Rin voiced her opposition, instead of wordlessly communicating it. I'm not going on any missions unless I'm sure you won't collapse when I'm gone. Naruto's brow lowered and his stare hardened, speaking to her without saying anything. Her twin jabbed her pointer finger on the table. Your problem is my problem, Naruto. That's how it's been. That's how it'll be. Makoto's eyes jumped to Naruto, who was sending another voiceless message to his twin, frowning and clenching his right fist on the table. Rin didn't relent. We're done having this conversation. Their brother flattened his hand on the table, her lips pressed tightly together and his teeth grinding. Rin slammed her apron on the dining table, standing up with a glare and leaving for the kitchen. I said, we're done having this talk. Talk. Any other person would think the two were mad. Being their youngest sibling and used to Naruto and Rin's twin communication, Makoto assumed that Rin's tiredness made her forget to keep her words from coming out of her mouth, instead of traveling in that odd wavelength her two older siblings shared. Naruto crumpled, leaning on his elbows and covering his face with his hands. Makoto nervously chewed on her breakfast, doing her best not to audibly drink her glass of orange juice. I'm sorry you had to see that, sis. Naruto admitted, his muffled voice coming from behind his hands. He winced at the noise coming from the kitchen. This thing Orochimaru did to me is really wearing on our patience. The girl bobbed her head. It's fine. Dad wants me to find Granny Tsunade, right? It'll be over soon, even if I have to hogtie her and drag her home. Naruto opened his hands, setting his cheeks on his palms and sending a faint smile to his quirky sister. Thanks, he said softly. Makoto beamed, returning to her breakfast by swallowing 2 furkfuls of eggs. Naruto brought her attention back with a gentle tap of his foot against hers. This doesn't mean you can't tell us what's going on with you. The girl slowed a little, her cheeks puffy with eggs and an eyebrow raised for her brother to elaborate. You know, if there's something going on with you, you can always tell us. We won't make fun of you or anything like that. Makoto swallowed her food, brow knitted suspiciously. Okay. Her brother shrugged. Just wanted you to know. He got up and walked around the dining table to the kitchen. Don't forget that. Makoto hummed, her blue eyes following her brother to the kitchen. Okay. The clattering of dishes and the rush of water from the sink's tap stopped, followed by low mumbling as her siblings held a private meeting. Naruto might have inherited their mother's sensory abilities, and Rin might have inherited their father's clear-sightedness, but Makoto inherited both Kushina and Minato's sharp hearing. Rin, I'm sorry. Look, I don't care if you don't appreciate what I'm doing. I really don't. I'd like it if you acknowledged I'm at least trying. There was a protracted silence and a short shuffle of feet. We had 4 close calls last night alone. 3 of them were my fault. Naruto interjected. Those weren't your fault. They were. Makoto inelegantly chewed on her toast, trying not to look like she was hearing them. Rin started crying. Kami, what if you died? Her tone was hushed. What if you died and it's because I couldn't stay awake? Naruto didn't answer. There was more shuffling. Rin's voice became muffled. I just want this to end already. I want that poison out of you, so we can get back to normal. Suspecting that they were hugging, and that her big sister was speaking into her brother's chest, Naruto whispered. Me too. Makoto got up and called out. Heading out now. Rin came from the kitchen and stood at the frame, sniffing and dabbing the bottom of her apron at the corners of her red-rimmed eyes. Hold on, Makoto, Naruto's packing your lunch. The girl strode to the living room and sat down on the couch, picking up and fumbling with attaching her kunai and shuriken holster around her hip, clicking the ends together and shifting the pouch around to her lower back. Thanks, but don't worry about that. She cringed a little at the quick pain she felt in her casted arm, pausing her movement to make sure not to aggravate the broken arm anymore. When she was sure the pain was gone, she continued with her one-armed preparations, sliding on her already packed survival backpack and got up. Her left hand reached for her claymore, sliding the sheathed weapon down between her shoulder blades, under the backpack till the end of the large and long sword reached past her behind. She used to have her weapons sheathed on her hip, but drawing them from her back felt more convenient at the moment. Swiveling around to exit the house, she stopped when she bumped into Rin. Her big sister was blocking the entrance of the living room, holding Makoto's forehead protector in one hand and a bento tin wrapped in a large handkerchief in her other. Rin scoffed, looking at her one-armed sister with a slight smile. Turn around, Miko Miko. Makoto huffed at the pet name, and did as she was told. The younger girl grunted as her sister unzipped her backpack, doing a quick scan of the contents to make sure everything was there. Then she eased in the wrapped tin inside, zipping the bag when she was done. She gripped the handle of the claymore, giving it a quick shake to see that the sheath was secure and accessible. Satisfied, Rin ran a soft hand through Makoto's straight hair, smiling wistfully. Who'd have thought my Miko Miko would be a ninja? Makoto scoffed. Better believe it, sis. Rin set the forehead protector above her sister's brow, tying the headband under Makoto's hair. She turned the girl around and got a good look at her. Makoto didn't have bangs like hers or their mother. Her straight hair was all combed back and reaching her shoulders. Rin almost envied how smooth and untangled her baby sister's hair was, as her own curly hair was a nightmare and a half to manage on a good day. It didn't make her happy that Makoto was going on missions so soon after the Chunin exams, especially in her injured state, but their father had assured her that Makoto wouldn't be going alone. The twins were mentally preparing to hold on for a month. Has Naruto told you anything about Granny T? Rin asked. Makoto shook her head, and Rin gripped her shoulders, maintaining eye contact. Okay. Don't take anything she says to heart. She's a bitter old lady. Bitter, old, drunk hag. Naruto pointedly shouted from the dining room. He began grumbling to himself. Rin rolled her eyes. Yeah, that. She became serious again, and the genin nodded. I know how hard it is for you not to take everything seriously. Makoto pouted. Rin snorted a small laugh. Try to stay calm. You have a way with words, Miko Miko. Use that instead. Yeah, don't stoop to her level. Naruto supplied. Alright, cranky, that's enough. Rin chuckled, standing upright and removing her hands from her sister's shoulders. She stood out of the way. Have a nice day. When you find that old drunkard, kick her in her fat SS, their brother called. Tell her it's from me. Bye bye. Makoto snickered as she jogged from the apartment. 6:01 a.m. Hokage's tower. Makoto blinked at her father. The man raised an eyebrow, propping his elbows on his desk and leaning his head on his laced hands. Will that be a problem? I mean, bewildered, Makoto scratched the top of her head, catching the musical twinkle in her father's eye at her clearly uncomfortable gesture. I kinda assumed I'd be going with Kakashi-sensei and the others. The Hokage scoffed. And if that's the case, can you tell me with full certainty that you won't slow down the mission by fighting with Sasuke? The girl frowned and threw her face away, denying nothing. Minato nodded. I thought so. I made this decision because getting Tsunade back quickly is too important to gamble with childish arguments. He broke my arm, Makoto retorted, gesturing wildly to her right arm. You've broken his before, Minato stated, matter of fact. The girl's rapid temper fell flat into a deep wince. He healed, and so will you. With time, he collected a scroll from his desk and held it to her, still sitting behind his desk. Here. Sulking, Makoto dragged her feet to the Hokage's desk. Taking the scroll and letting gravity unfurl it as she held the top up with her left hand. She scanned the mission specs. Mission specifications. Identity of the target. Tsunade Senju, henceforth on mission and until safe retrieval referred to as target. Purpose of the mission. Find and retrieval, henceforth filed under retrieval. Target's last known location: Zayuki, hot water country. Current state of the target: unknown, alive, henceforth considered alive till proven otherwise. Manner of approach: at your own discretion. Target is known to be brash and confrontational. Shinobi on duty is to take note. There is a likeliness for a violent confrontation in response to the retrieval mission. Shinobi on duty is to refrain as much as possible to not respond in kind. Target is known to travel with Shizune Kato, whose current state is alive. Intention is for target to return peacefully. Mission priority: A. Mission class: A. Shinobi on duty. Sai Shimura, Genin, Makoto Namikaze, Genin, Yugao Azuki, Junin. Makoto lowered the scroll, rolling it up with one hand. Sai Shimura. Did he graduate from my year? Councilman Donzo's relative. He wanted assurance that the mission would go smoothly, and Sai is that assurance, apparently, the Hokage explained with an encouraging nod. He's been a genin a year longer than you. From what I've seen, he's quite skilled. If he's so skilled, where is he now? Minato smirked, getting back to his work. You're the last one to get here. Makoto balked, startled by the revelation. They've already been briefed and are waiting for you at the northern gate. Good luck, Makoto. There was a good 20 minutes of quiet in the Hokage's office after she left to join her fellow shinobi on duty, where the man read through previous mission reports left on his desk from the night before. Only missions higher than AB class were personally read by him, as anything lower could be safely handled by his assistants, the two of whom were seated outside of his office. Any decisions that needed to be implemented due to the conclusion of C-class mission or lower, were briefed to the Hokage and formally submitted for the Hokage's stamp. This wasn't necessarily a decentralization or deconcentration of power, as the Hokage was still widely seen as both the unquestioned head of state and head of government, a military dictator in every sense. Minato just designated some responsibilities to reduce his workload. And this initiative drastically reduced the weight of paperwork piled on his desk, though only slightly. Konoha was still a massive hidden village, in geographical size, population, and sphere of influence. Either there was some sort of international issue a shinobi on duty would purposely or accidentally commit on foreign soil needing help to be bailed out, or the trade department of the village would say that the food and agriculture department were overstepping by providing fish farmers too much independence to sell their good, without the consent of the trade department. Or maybe, there was a short drought, an occasion that happened every 6 months in Konoha, and farmers as usual were panicking, inflating food prices and scrambling for water, when there was in fact more than enough for everyone. Or the clusterfuck of a situation where one of his own ninjas temporarily incapacitated the entire single, unfaithful kunoichi population of Suna, an event so notorious, the perpetrator had a cult following, and the weak still lived on in infamy. Or when an Iron Country samurai supposedly committed ritualistic suicide and was hung by his balls. Now those situations had been hell to resolve. There were allied and neutral villages that requested loans from Konoha, either to pay their underpaid civilian population or to spend it on their militaries. Here Minato pinched his nose with a weary exhale. He, and the diplomats sent to those villages, would always do a moral service by advising the loan takers to put the money into something more sustainable, like agriculture or trade. The borrowers would just nod their heads eagerly and hold out their hands for the money. At least those loan takers owed them, and Konoha always collected its debts. Then there were Iwa scouts pushing and prodding at Konoha's border, doing their utmost to try his patience, and needing to be deterred every so often. Then there were the missing ninjas, Konoha's or otherwise. Although not many emergencies were overt enough to cause mass panic in the Hidden Leaf Village, there was always something going on that concerned Konoha, and he was constantly kept busy. Minato was interrupted by a knock. Yes, he called. A Chunin assistant opened the door. They entered and stood at attention. Lord Hokage, sir. Yes, Daisuke. What is it? He mumbled, signing an official order for his Anbu and non-Anbu elite Junin to collaborate on dissolving Orochimaru's hidden sound network. Without looking, He held two scrolls over his shoulder, to his back, and Anbu operative Tiger leapt down from somewhere, collected the scroll, and rushed to deliver it to Konoha's black operative commander and Minato's head of shinobi affairs. The aforenamed Daisuke bowed. Mr. Naruto and Miss Rin are here for the meeting. The Hokage grunted. Yes, bring them in. The Chunin opened the door wider and stood aside for his children to enter. Good morning, Lord Hokage, sir. The two greeted in unison, parting ways as Naruto sat on the chair before the Hokage's desk and Rin went to the window, plopping down and leaning back to catch more sunlight. Within the confines of the Namikaze clan before they mostly died out, they joked that flash step release holders were human solar panels, soaking in the rays of the sun and superchanging it to chakra when needed. They were also compared to cats, lounging on the porch and basking in the sun. Minato saw the tiredness of Rin's sagged shoulders, and decided that she wasn't in the mood to be joked with this morning. Naruto on the other hand. Kami, Naruto, you look terrible. The graying Namikaze beamed and his teenage son glared murderous ire through simmering purple eyes. Like, worse than normal. You and Makoto both are just one person. The boy scolded, crossing his right ankle over his left knee. She already said that this morning. Pleased with himself, the man reclined and smirked, lacing his fingers over his stomach. She does take after me, doesn't she? He posed with his chin between his thumb and middle fingers, smoldering. She's got my roguish good looks, and my way with the ladies. The man made sure to roll that last word on his tongue, and Rin shrieked, covering her ears and closing her eyes. Dad, stop. The man howled in laughter. Naruto scoffed, joking right back. She's also got your bald spot and your bad-smelling farts. Minato's laugh increased, tumbling back and holding his stomach. The Chunin assistant didn't know how to remind the father-children trio of his presence, so he just spoke up. Lord Hokage, sir. Trying to breathe, Minato asked. Huh, Daisuke. He wiped the tears streaming from his eyes with a handkerchief, humming. Remind me again if I have any other meeting. By 10, you have a meeting with Lord Kazekage to talk about maintaining the Konoha-Suna highway and on training exercises for Konoha and Suna ninjas. By noon, you have tea with the elders. By 1:30, Lady Mebuki Haruno wishes to speak to you concerning the recent surge in violence against Konoha's traveling merchants. And lastly, you wanted me to remind you to contact Lord Jiraiya. No specified time. Remind me to do that when I'm finished with Naruto and Rin. Yes, sir. The Hokage waved him off, and the Chunin left with a bow. Long day ahead, Rin remarked. I feel sorry you have to have tea with those elders. You get used to how predictable it is. Some days. And besides, the elders aren't so bad if you get to understand where they're coming from. They're just, Minato shrugged, looking for the right word. Old-fashioned. Their time was harsh. Survive or die. Peacetime, and Konoha not having major fights with our neighbors, is something they're still not used to. There's some wisdom in them, though, if you look past the, you know. The twins winced at that last part. The elders could be a bit biased in their opinions, especially when it came to allies. Searching his desk for something, he glanced at his son. Long night. Yeah. Naruto slouched further into his chair. Isolating the poison from my organs while I sleep is difficult. While he was awake, on the other hand, it wasn't a big issue, if not bothersome. Don't worry about me. You wanted to give us a mission. The man finally found what he was looking for. It was a featureless brown binder, 2 inches thick with black and white pictures poking out from the corners. The binder was stuffed full with sheets of paper and those pictures. He passed the book to his son, looking to his daughter as she turned her gaze to them. Take a look at this and tell me what you think. The girl hopped off the window and walked to her brother, leaning down with her right arm over Naruto's right shoulder and her head peering over her brother's left. A quarter of the way into the book, Rin wondered. Kiri's civil war is over. Naruto mumbled. Supposedly. He looked at a clean, grayscale picture of the Mizukage and the rebel leader, Mei Terum, shaking hands in front of the village gates. The Mizukage and the rebels reached an agreement, and called for an end to the war. May Terum's now the head of Bloodline Matters. Rin read the caption underneath another picture, one where the former rebel leader was shown at the back of a desk, busily ordering an eye-patch-wearing ninja, while at the same time answering a landline call. She called for rebels in all parts of Kiri to stop fighting, and for Kiri refugees to come back home. They all pursed their lips and grunted. It seemed the three of them were more alike than they thought. Their thoughts on the Kiri matter, for instance, were mostly the same. Kiri had been in a civil war since the very end of the Third Great Shinobi War, 20 or so years ago, when the fourth Mizukage had taken the position of Cage of Kiri. Before his rise and before the war, Yugura had been a strong driving force in favor of the destruction of Konoha due to several past experiences. The man was relatively unknown even by his Kiri peers until he spearheaded many political kidnappings, many of which were vastly successful in increasing the weight of his name. The first was the kidnap and ransoming of the Fire Lord's oldest son, then came the assassination of a dozen waterfall dignitaries on Kiri soil, and then followed the kidnapping he was most known for in Konoha. An event that was now known to be the flash that heralded the end of the Third War. A large squad of Kiri ninjas spirited Rin Noharu away from her teammates while they were on a mission, and then released her days later, close to Konoha's southeastern wall. She was guided by a number of following Kiri ninjas. The three tails had been sealed inside her and timed to release at a certain close proximity to Konoha, until the now only other member of Team Minato came to her rescue, only for her to reveal her current state and impale herself on Kakashi's Chidori. Till this day, the Leaf was still unable to recover Rin Noharu's body, stolen from where she was last seen alive by some unknown person. Yet, rumors persisted that Yugura had sealed the three tails inside himself, and mastered its power. That could be true, or it could easily be a lie. Still, Yugura's ascension to Mizukage was strongly contested. Till Yugura assassinated all 11 of his fellow Mizukage aspirants in a free-for-all battle for the position, the 11 being S-rank ninjas in their own right, and being against the platform Yugura stood on, they collectively saw the small, childlike man as a threat to their village, and joined forces to eliminate him first and foremost. They didn't succeed. This was before rumors of Yugura having the three tails began spreading. Konoha's hidden spectators that day reported the same thing. He became a monster. He showed no emotion, no hesitation and no regret thereafter, snapping bone and drowning his countrymen with clinical efficiency and quickness. When he had eliminated his last opponent and covered head to toe in blood, he was no longer childlike in appearance. Naruto and Rin looked at a recovered photograph of the Mizukage, with his foot stepped through the shattered skull of his former opponent, blood and brain matter caking his foot. The image was made worse by the condescending, almost lifeless, look at the broken corpse. Immediately upon taking the position, Yugura purged his council of bloodline holders and bloodline sympathetic, executing them and their entire extended families publicly. The next photo was of a long row of hooded men, women and children, strung up on gallows. Their hands were tied at their backs and their ankles were restrained by ropes. Heads were driven into pikes. Feet were sawed off and hands were broken. Clan compounds were burned, corpses were desecrated. Children cried for their murdered parents, left with their mangled corpses. The twins glowered at the reminder of the Mizukage's emotionless brutality. They knew all too well of the Mizukage's hate. For Konoha. For their clan. For them. Yugura began nurturing generations of bloodline haters and destroyers. Bloodline holders and bloodline sympathetics banded together and fought back, beginning with some isolated skirmishes where bloodline bearers brawled with traitors for being spat on, or when a bomb was exploded on the floor level of the Mizukage's building, killing scores and injuring even more. This all culminated in the start of Kiri's bloody civil war. Minato quietly supported the rebel forces with food and medicine, helping Kiri refugees escape and housing them in the village. There was a thriving district in the Hidden Leaf populated by former Kiri residents, who had adopted Konoha as their home. They were mainly fishers and rice farmers, though more than a few assimilated themselves into Konoha's ninja force. Although sectioned off somewhat into what was called the Kiri district, the refugees were provided as much support as any other person, as long as they showed honesty in their intentions. Some 8 clans and hundreds of refugees lived and worked in Konoha, bettering their lives and Konoha's economy. Kiri was the only village that had a named district in Konoha, something their ally, Suna, didn't yet have. Konoha's support for the rebel forces was unstated in any public record. Minato recognized that allowing Yagura absolute power in such a vital hub as Kiri spelt disaster for Konoha and its allies. Kiri had a wealth of shinobi knowledge concerning hunter-ninja training, weapons making, aquatic agriculture, and the oil reserves located in their territory. And though disturbed by the reality of their intentions, the rebel leader didn't care why Konoha was sending them supplies. No village or country had any selfless intention when they chose a side in the civil war. Kumo sided with the Mizukage, stating that they wanted bloodline holders exported from Kiri to Kumo. Hidden Marshes supported the rebels because many of their citizens had their lives rooted in Kiri, and the bloodline genocide so close to their borders was a matter of national security. Suna, Iwa and Snow Country were decidedly neutral, offering asylum to those that wandered over their borders, doing so to boost the numbers of prospective shinobi and improve their economies with the injection of willing manpower. Selflessness in this world was always met with justified suspicion. The Anbu stationed in the corners of the office observed the 3 Namikaze contemplate in silence, Rin taking the other seat before the Hokage's desk and gingerly accepting the plain brown binder when her brother offered it to her to read. Realistically, Naruto began with a murmur, the Mizukage's views can be negotiated with. Clan genocide, Rin whispered, appalled and shaking her head. Bloodline genocide. How can the Mizukage reach a truce with the rebels, right? Minato hummed, looking at his children with doubtful blue eyes. How can 20 years of war just end like that? All of a sudden, without warning. Have there been any bloodline purges recently? Naruto posed the question. Minato shook his head. Not since last month. Then, after that, the truce was called. Kiri's sealed its borders ever since. No one can get in, except refugees and authorized personnel. Pointing to the binder, Minato said. This information was 2 decades in the making. The spy that compiled them submitted their last entry before the Chunin exam started, then they suddenly went dark. A grim silence fell on them, and on the observing Anbu shinobi. Minato nodded. I can't confirm for sure, but I know my spy is damn well unkillable. They'll be in hiding, gathering intel and stockpiling data, till they hear from me to come back home. Rin closed the book, and shared looks with her father and brother. You're both thinking the same thing, right? They nodded. Although I can't, in good conscience, send you out on the field in your condition. Minato said to his son. I also can't send Rin to Kiri alone, given the risks. Alone, Naruto and Rin were a rank. Together, the Red Demon and the Angel of Konoha were high S rank. No other team in Konoha could boast this feat. Naruto smirked, realizing that his resolution to not being given a mission until Tsunade was returned was unfounded. So, you're saying, I want both of you to find out what's really going on in Kiri. He sat forward, setting his forearms on the table and narrowing a look at the twins, who were growing increasingly unable to contain their excitement. Do not engage unless you absolutely cannot avoid it. This isn't a combat mission. It's purely reconnaissance. This mission would be off the books. S rank till I decide otherwise. An unspoken warning went to the spectating black operatives in the room, warning of pain and suffering if a word of this mission was breathed outside of the confines of the Hokage's office. Find what you can and get back to me immediately. Am I understood? The 2 shot to their feet, stoic and determined. Yes, Lord Hokage, sir. Gear up and get into Kiri undetected. He tossed Rin a scroll and she opened it. It was blank. Look for crow's feet and give them that scroll to confirm it's you. Listen to what they have to say and work off what they've already done. Since you can't go to Kiri directly, you'll have to find other ways inside. Use your discretion. The twins nodded. Understood, Lord Hokage, sir. Testament to their speed, the two were packed and southeastbound on a ship to Hidden Marsh within 5 minutes. Makoto liked to think she was a very open-minded person. Sure, she might have a small, harmless temper, but she never claimed to be perfect. She wasn't the kind of person that was quick to judge whether or not she would get along with someone. Don't judge a book by its cover, was a popular saying. There could be common ground between her and everyone around her, if she looked for it. Sai Shimura not only threw a wrench at her belief system, but he threw the whole damn tool shed. Oi, washboard. Makoto ground her teeth, a thick vein pulsing on the side of her temple and her hands curled into fists, digging so hard into her palms she was sure her fingernails were leaving deep grooves. Washboard, look, a rabbit. He didn't get a reply from Makoto, walking down the meandering path through the field of grass and pointedly keeping her eyes ahead. Have you ever had a rabbit? He jogged to her side and prodded her cheek. Did you hear what I said? When she didn't reply, he continued. Well, have you? She grumbled, not giving him so much as a passing side eye. The boy smiled, eyes closed and tittering. I get the feeling you don't like my nickname for you, washboard. Rounding on Sai, Makoto's eyes blackened and her iris turned red, elongating at the top and bottom, widening with hatred and bloodlust. The voice she spoke with was demonic, enough to make Yugao Azuki cautious. You think? I read somewhere that fun nicknames are great for strengthening new bonds of friendship. He examined her from head to toe, the sickly false smile ever present on his lips and his pleased eyes nearly closed. I just chose a prominent feature. Or in your case, non-existent. Yugao just made it in time to hold Makoto back from wailing on a chuckling Sai. I am not a washboard. The Junin laughed, nervous. All right, Sai, that's enough. Stepping back respectfully, shocking Makoto so much with that singular action, the boy nodded. Hi, Yugao senpai. When Yugao was sure Makoto had calmed down, she released her. Makoto huffed, straightening her shirt and bearing a short snarl at Sai when he smiled at her, facing front and continuing the journey. How come Yugao doesn't get a nickname? Makoto grumbled after a little while. Yugao senpai isn't my friend, she's my senpai. Then, to get a reaction, he added. Plus, I actually respect her. Makoto pulled up the sleeve of her broken arm, fire rushing through her veins hot enough to forget she couldn't use that arm. You know what? Makoto, Sai, I said that's enough. Yugao ordered, her tone strong and her glare harsh. Sai, play nice. Makoto, don't let him annoy you. Scoffing, and smiling as ever, Sai raised his hands in defeat. All right. Despite Yugao's advice, Makoto boiled. Who does this pale kid think he is? I'm not. Flat. Saying that Sai Shimura was pale was like saying that water was wet. It was like he had lived his whole life underground, pale enough for Makoto to spy some blue-purple veins on his neck and the back of his hands, catching them in just the right light. He had dark eyes and black hair that drooped messily. He wore a short-sleeve, dark blue half-shirt with long-sleeve mesh armor underneath with black shinobi pants that reached above his ankles and light brown ninja sandals. His weapon, Makoto observed, was a tanto sheathed slanted to his right shoulder on his back, a shuriken pouch on his lower back and a kunai pouch on the side of his right thigh, also carrying a side bag with what she assumed were his camping necessities. His forehead protector was on his forehead. Wherever it was this pale reptile had slithered out from must have been dark and lonely. She could easily pick on him about how pale he was, but she shook her head. I'll be picking rocks out of my mouth for weeks if I stoop to his level. Making an exaggerated show of avoiding him, Makoto jogged up to the team's Junin, beaming. Yugao, on the other hand, wasn't an unfamiliar face. The deputy Anbu captain was frequently called to babysit Makoto, as the twins were frequently too busy from when they acquired their forehead protectors. She was also the first person outside of her family Makoto grew comfortable around, which meant she more than often invited herself to Yugao and Anko's small apartment when she felt like it, and foraged for food in their fridge. Makoto didn't know much about Yugao's family, other than that she was the lastborn, only daughter with 10 older brothers. Her parents ran a big farm in the earliest part of her life, aside from trying to survive being mobbed by her brothers, was working on the fields. Juggling academy schoolwork with tending cows out to pasture and fighting her brothers for a place at the house, Yugao was understandably strong-willed. She wasn't a woman of many words, and Makoto respected that. Yugao gave her a short smile. "How's the arm? Itches," Makoto admitted with a shrug, shifting the casted arm a little. "Doc says I should be able to remove it by next week." A sympathetic corner of her lips quirked up, turning her eyes to the road ahead. "Must suck. I mean, it's not the best." Makoto breathed in and out, enjoying the fresh air and the grass extending as far as the eye could see. "But I guess I'm lucky." The woman lifted an eyebrow, briefly turning her glance to the young girl. "How so?" "I didn't bruise my ribs. Again. Which is good." Yugao seemed to accept this with a purse of her lips and a nod, looking forward. "And the Kyuubi makes my healing faster. Less painful. All that good stuff." Of course, Makoto knew she housed the nine-tailed fox. From a young age, Minato wanted her to come to terms with her gigantic chakra reserves, the sheer volatility of the chakra, and expressed the dire need for her to not explode with quick rage. Her father's thinking was that if she was aware of this and they answered any questions she had concerning the beast sealed in her gut, it would be easier for her to cope. Her father didn't want her to be an emotionless robot, or whatever Naruto was, or an overactive lightning bolt, like Rin. He wanted her to be reasonable. There weren't any active plans to train her to master her beast chakra, not until Minato heard from Jiraiya, but this awareness of the monster jailed in her body gave her better perspective on why she needed to keep a firm cap on any extreme emotions. There was a great deal of trust her father confided in her. It was humbling. Makoto wasn't sure if Kurama was in fact the Kyuubi. Kurama was more like a voice in her head, telling her secrets and revealing facts. Ancient truths and forgotten jutsu, when she asked politely. The Rasengan she tried at the Chunin exams was her first time displaying the technique outside of her mind, and it was because of Kurama's guidance she could pull it off, as incomplete as it was. The reason Kurama told her these things and taught her how to use them was simple. It didn't want her to die a worthless death. Makoto wasn't too keen on that occurring either, so it was a win-win in her opinion. Was she eager to reveal that her genius was, in part, due to Kurama's influence? Not really. Her Jinchuriki status wasn't a secret in the village. Although the Nine Tails had destroyed many lives and ruined the village as a whole, there was a certain level of reassurance comforting the citizens when they remembered that a level 10 seal master and an S-rank team lived in close proximity to her. There also needed to be a general shinobi knowledge included in the civilian and ninja academy curriculum, where the basics of fuinjutsu and ninjutsu were taught. There were still dissenting voices calling for tighter restraints and limitations on her. Some of those voices even sat in the council, but 12 years of nothing occurring dampened the noise. Even now, Yugao had been provided a handful of seals to suppress the Kyuubi's chakra if something happened to Makoto, and her grip on her emotions unraveled. Just in case. Have you ever been this far from Konoha? Yugao wondered, making casual conversation. She was fine with silence. All of her friends knew her to be a quiet person, but she could feel the awkwardness from Makoto. The girl was fumbling with her fingers and searching her mind for something to talk about. She brightened up at the question. "Waves as far as I've gone. This is my first time." Makoto glanced over her shoulder to Sai, whose drooping smile turned back up when he saw her blue gaze. They began marching up a steep hill. "The place we're going to, Zayuki, what do you know about it?" Not really in the mood for a long-winded verbal instruction that was more Kakashi's thing, Yugao made a flippant gesture over her shoulder. "Sai, what do you know about Zayuki?" The other genin was quick to jump on the question, his voice monotonous as he monologued. Zayuki is a border city at the southwestern corner of Hot Water Country, strategically located in the general area where Fire Country and Grass Country met Hot Water Country. The intention was to make Zayuki into a trading hub for hot water, which had at that time been known across the continent for its hot springs alone. Although populated with hot springs and massage parlors, Zayuki is no longer a trading town, but in fact a gambling city. This is due to the massive importation of bootleg grass country wine by a small-time gang in hot water and a movement of cigarettes from Fire Country, encouraging less than friendly attention by delinquents and ne'er-do-wells. Sai rambled on, reciting word for word the textbook he had crammed hours ahead of this mission. The hot water government decided to scrap their hopes for a trading hub, replacing it with profiteering from the surge in alcohol and cigarettes. They did this by snatching control of the importation of wine and cigarettes from the Yakuza, making the price enticingly low and enacting special laws for Zayuki alone. The hot water government wasn't even trying to hide their greediness. They saw a chance to make profit, and they grabbed it with both hands and feet. The hot water government, and Zayuki administration, were principally a Yakuza of their own. Fortunately, the Zayuki experiment worked remarkably well. If certain precautions had not been taken, and certain prison sentences hadn't been distributed, Zayuki would have been a cesspool of depravity and illicit behavior. Now, it was a government-regulated cesspool of depravity and illicit behavior. Yugao scoffed. Violent crime was down to 5%, the presence of an organized gang was close to 0%, and hot water's fumbling economy skyrocketed. There were no residential houses for people to live long-term and hide inside as they drank their stores of wine, only hotels and such, where payment was made monthly and the bars were constantly flowing with wine. For those that thought they could live good, clean lives while in Zayuki, there were restaurants and roadside food vendors, where they could find something to eat and drink that wasn't going to make them high. Probably. The intention was so blatant Yugao scoffed again. Sai finished by saying, although there isn't a strict age limit for people entering the city, anyone below the age of 18 is prohibited from taking alcohol or narcotics of any kind, including tea and coffee. Alcohol and narcotics vendors are warned by punishment of death if any minor is caught intoxicated. It was strangely moral of them. They reached the top of the hill and bore witness to a mile-long line of carts and carriages, easing little by little through Zayuki's gate. Sai made a sweeping gesture to it all, at the adventure awaiting them inside the continent's most corrupt city, his fake grin reaching ear to ear. Welcome to Zayuki, washboard. Oh. The wave strait, southeast of Konoha. Naruto honestly wanted to say that the boat ride was uneventful. It wasn't. First, they were hit with a storm. Then he was jarred into remembering that Rin wasn't a water person. Leaning listlessly at the side of the boat, Rin moaned terribly, her eyes swirling and her green face reflecting back to her on the murky blue water. Her cheeks puffed out. Waj. Naruto kept her hair away from her face, absent-mindedly patting her back. It's all right. It's okay. I'm sorry, Naruto. His sister wept, tears muddying her face. I'm so sorry. No, don't apologize. He consoled her with a shout over the storm, wincing a little when she released another stream of sickness into the water. The fishermen on the small boat were distracted by the harsh lapping of water against the side of the fishing vessel, roaring to their comrades, throwing nets into the water and capitalizing on the disturbance of the sudden storm. The fishermen, with some use of chakra, stood at the front and end of the ship, bellowing infrequent wind from their lips to push away the storm from tearing their boat to bits, not so powerful as to calm the storm. We should have gone through wave. Taken a cruise to marsh. He cringed at the foul exhale of undigested breakfast from his sister. It's my fault. I forgot. No. At this point, Rin was dry heaving air. The twins were disguised as fishermen, wearing gray rain ponchos, boots and waterproof caps, shading their faces as best as they could until they docked in Hidden Marsh. The secrecy of their mission demanded they stay incognito, except for the captain of the ship, who ran over to them, carefully trying not to slip. Is this storm usual, Captain? We're in the middle of autumn. Naruto bellowed, collecting a canteen of fresh water from the large fisherman and helping his sister wash her face. The captain sent an odd look to his left, yelling in his coarse accent. "'Tis odd, Namikaze. We's not expectin' a storm fur 'nother month. I's thinkin' Sumethan's bringin' the storm." Naruto's eyebrows lifted. "Sea monster." The captain nodded. "Aye." Rin spat, eyes wide like dinner plates. "They exist. Aye, miss. Overgrown seafoods what they are." A large wave punched into the boat, forcing the twins to connect to the ground with chakra. Naruto reached for the captain, securing him down when it seemed that the larger man was going to fall overboard. "Damned Kraken!" the captain bellowed, his booming voice carrying over the storm. He waved his fist angrily. "I paid good money fare this here ship." "Kraken," Rin repeated, her voice cracking with hysteria. "Did you just say Kraken?" The captain didn't answer, rumbling to his quarters for his harpoons, cursing to the wind and the water. Their little boat couldn't handle any more of this storm, being held together by the efforts of the former ninjas exhaling wind to counter the powerful fists of the storm. A hurricane was gathering in the distance, far enough for them to see the funneling tip rise higher and higher into the sky, but close enough for the boat to get drawn toward it. "Kami, damn it!" Naruto shouted. He pushed his sister to stay where she was. "Look after the boat. I'll go kill this thing." She didn't put up a fight, partly relieved that she didn't need to accompany him on this blistering storm. "If you die," her brother beamed, a bright expression on his pallid face. "I can't die, sis." He leapt overboard and ran on the water into the storm, the red mist of his dash quickly lost to the wind. Naruto soon found out that it wasn't, in fact, a kraken causing the storm. Which was good? It was Samahata. Which was worse? Oh 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 oh. Hokage's tower. Konoha. Minato hummed briefly, his blue eyes lifting up and looking to his office's open window when he felt a small, micro tremor run up his feet. It was a telltale sign that his son had tapped into his ghost speed release, surpassing normal Junin speeds with a crack of air. This sensation wasn't something people outside of the clan could easily pick up. Minato was inclined to worry. Naruto didn't often need to resort to using ghost speed outside of a properly timed ghost flicker technique, normally slowing down to flash step release speeds, which itself was miles faster than high Junin. The Hokage pushed down his worry. He had to believe that his son would come out of whatever scuffle he was in fine. He sighed and rolled his shoulders, bending back to work. An assistant had written for him a speech to commission a second hydroelectric dam in the village, an event to take place within the week. The first hydroelectric dam was built in the second Hokage's era, and for years it had been struggling to raise the needed power for the ever-growing village. Diesel engines had been an option for a long while, but when many of them were on at the same time, there was too much noise and smoke pollution. Solar panels would have been the next best option, but Konoha's scientists were having trouble building them, so Minato charged his scientists to study underwaterfall, learning about their Ali's hydroelectric dam and using this knowledge to build an improvement on their own. Although, technically, the new dam was already functioning to supply electricity across the village and the people were all the more glad for it, the village's council pressed the Hokage to formalize the commissioning. Minato didn't see the need. He had done a lot of projects in and around the village that had just been opened for public use, without any formal commissioning, renovating the near-abandoned civilian academy library, expanding the intensive section of the hospital, collaborated with Suna to build the Suna-Konoha Highway, built scores of houses at the western side of village, upgraded the village's bank, electrified 90% of the village, constructed telephone lines and phone booths around the village, resurrected the village's dying post office and made the messenger hawk handlers join forces with the post office, and other such things. This time, the council stressed that the hydroelectric dam was something that had been in dire need for many years. Voltage going into houses had formerly been too low or too high, breaking appliances that were properly unplugged, electricity wasn't assured for the whole day, and winter always meant there was a power draft, where citizens had to brave the cold without electricity. The speech would silence some critics, at the very least. Minato was the peacetime Hokage. After all, his focus was improving village infrastructure and maintaining alliances, not just fortifying the village and rushing Ninja Academy students out onto the field. Konoha was globally known to prefer quality over quantity when it came to many things, like the skill of its ninjas. It was why Konoha had more globally renowned ninja and were infamous for their military logistics, instead of planning to use sheer numbers to overwhelm enemy forces, like Iwa. Minato snorted at that, recalling how he had decimated 1,000 Iwa ninjas on his own. Sure, a large amount of skill was involved in that slaughter and a larger amount of chakra had been expelled, but it didn't excuse Iwa in any way. Still, Minato didn't like how quiet Hidden Rock was being, only sending scouts to push at Konoha's borders and observe the village from afar. His eyes narrowed when a single sheet of paper fluttered through his window, rising in preparation to flash away with the paper in case it was a bomb. His guards had the same idea, diving down without hesitation and snagging the gaily fluttering paper from the air. Anbu operative Tiger checked for traps on the paper, keeping his body between the paper and his Hokage. Monkey concentrated her senses for an incoming attack, poking her head out and flickering her eyes all about, while Rat and Horse stood guard in front and behind Minato, their weapons at the ready. Safe, Tiger declared, releasing a small breath. No traps, sir. What is it? Minato walked past Rat and collected the lonesome sheet of paper from Tiger. The scrawled words on the paper made Minato's face turn down with foreboding. In the writer's haste, they were unable to finish the last word of the three-word letter. Send help. Ko. Oh 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 oh. The Wave Strait, southeast of Konoha. Naruto narrowed his eyes, charging deep into the storm and running low on the water. Cold sea mist hit his face and sharp rain beat his waterproof cap, skidding left and right on the turbulent waters, blazing up a wave curling high enough to blot out the sky before him. Each powerful step he made oozed steamy red afterimages, tearing into the top of the wave and leaping through. Soaring through the air, the world stilled. Naruto's rain poncho flapped harder when he opened his arms and legs to catch as much air as possible, soaring in that moment of aerial calm. The hurricane spiraled in his front, a funneling storm of water and mist, twisting from the sea and disappearing in the sky. The sea below whirled, soused to that singular catastrophic point, raising defiant waves rolling outwards. Naruto's purple eyes spun, iris converging to a point before widening, expanding and revolving with three tomo glaring expressionlessly into the heart of the storm. He saw the creature causing the hurricane, a man-sized thing that pulsed purplish chakra. The archaic web of chakra network running from its narrow end to the largish top, reaching a gaping jaw, trickled with an unharmonious cluster of foreign chakra. One strain of chakra Naruto found that wasn't yet shared into the creature's chakra network was tucked into a ball at the very middle of the sea monster's chakra reserves. The chakra in the creature's gut wasn't alive, while the surrounding it stormed hot and cold. The creature wasn't mindless. It was screaming. It was mourning. Naruto recognized the violent rapidity that was the creature's chakra, first seeing it in his father the day his wife was killed, lying dead on his lap and unknowing of the child reading his chakra network from afar. His eyes bugged out, bringing his forearms to his face and his knees to his elbows, letting himself get soused into the storm. Oh 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 oh. Naruto started in a ball, keeping his arms and legs close to his middle and gritting his teeth at the bellow of the storm in his ears. The mix of chakra and water bashed and smashed into him, cycling him upwards into the sky. The hurricane whipped him round and round, flinging him higher and higher up the funnel, yet he remained as calm as possible, trusting his intuition not to steer him into the grave. In that spiraling rise, he turned his Sharingan stare to the sea creature causing this storm, getting a more definite image of it, using the chakra network to create an outline and filling in the gaps himself. It looked like a club, with a gaping maw and shuddering scales, raised in a noticeable 45-degree angle. Round and round, higher and higher, Naruto became more and more sure that the insanity of the creature was born from an uncomfortably sentient sorrow. His brow knit and his lips turned down. Naruto wasn't one for compassion, not for anyone that didn't share his last name, but even he was forced to feel something when he saw the stark similarity of the monster's mourning with that of his father's. Lashing out at everything, thoughtless of others, feral with rage. Nearing the top of the hurricane, Naruto shook the memory from his head with a hard clench of his teeth. He opened his arms and got his legs underneath him, building chakra up in his gut and holding his breath. Then he was thrown out of the top of the hurricane, tossed into the atmosphere. The air was thin, electric with the creature's chakra yet light of oxygen. Naruto gazed into the darkness of space, his Sharingan beginning an anti-clockwise grind. Then he started falling back into the mouth of the storm. He turned in the air and moved toward the rim of the hurricane, clapping his palms together, and a sharp crack of chakra briefly lit the sky in dark red, a premature sunset that spanned the wave strait. He called his jutsu, and the occupants of the wave strait, fishermen on his boat and other boats caught in the storm, bore witness to a miracle. The start of a red demon folktale. Ghost speed release. Water style. Breath taker. The red sky shone, choked with chakra and focusing down into the hurricane. Like a distorted drill, the red chakra traveled into the storm and wound through it, around it, turning blue water red and sousing in the turbulent noise of the hurricane. The mist of chakra expelling from Naruto's body as he channeled his bloodline colored the hurricane crimson. Mesmerized from the sight, Rin's jaw dropped, arms now drooped from pushing waves from the boat with exhaled gusts of wind. The captain of the boat stopped, the storm lulled in their favor and the other boats on the strait found the water to be relatively calm. Though no one really noticed this. They just gazed at the red hurricane awed and afraid. Reaching from the blue sea and merging into the crimson sky, the storm twisted with deafening noiselessness. The captain of the boat breathed, goosebumps rising on his arms. In all my years, a red hurricane. In the eye of the storm, Naruto wrapped the monster in a bubble of pressurized red water and examined it. There weren't any pictures of Samahata, but Naruto put together all the written descriptions in his mind. The vibration generated ringing in his fingertips. All 10 digits were dipped into the water prison of the thrashing sea beast, causing the water to tremble at a cellular level. The pressure increased, becoming similar to the depth pressure of thousands of miles under the sea. It squeezed the writhing Kiri sword, holding it together firmer and harder, preventing not so much as a twitch of motion. Calm down, big guy. Naruto whispered, using his chakra as a shell to encase the water, while the molecular vibrations of his fingers pressurized the water prison. He was smart enough to know that if he made the mistake of pushing chakra into the water prison, it would only strengthen the sorrowful sword. He did to Samahata what he wished he could have done for his father when he was younger. Comfort him. He was young. No one would blame him for reacting to his father's raised walls by raising his own, hating the world and shutting it out. Days, weeks, and months after his wife's passing, Minato blocked out his children, and his son lashed back, as if it was his responsibility to do so. Neither refused to understand that both were going through the exact same thing. Older now, he regretted not opening up to his father, limiting his humanity to his twin and blocking out Makoto for the better part of her infancy. Minato had experienced loss on a greater scale than Naruto perceived, since he had watched his clan die out, leaving him behind. Their grieving threatened to tear their suffering apart. Konoha credited Naruto for being a genius, but he accepted that Rin was the smarter twin. She knew that her father's heart was still too large, even after years of being an infamous shinobi, and that losing someone he loved with his entire being impacted him terribly, more so than seeing his clan wither and die. Rin was their bridge, heartbroken as she was at the death of her mother. A tether linking the family together. Shira taught the family the words that brought them back together. It's all right. Naruto consoled, voice low and gentle. He wasn't known for his humanity, but he understood losing himself because of trauma and loss. Samahata's mindless thrashing reminded Naruto of his father, and of himself. Naruto's throat clogged with guilt and remembrance. You're okay, he whispered. Ever so gradually, Samahata stopped battering against the pressure, quivering in the water prison. Naruto stopped the turning of the great, red hurricane, letting the mighty storm fall and gathering his chakra back to himself. Encased in the water prison, Samahata didn't resist when Naruto brought him back to the boat. There, it opened its gaping maw and vomited the corpse of Kisame Hoshigaki, the zero-tailed beast.